Deep within the archives of European law enforcement lies a case that transformed a simple child abduction investigation into something far more sinister. What began as the pursuit of one man's crimes eventually revealed connections so disturbing that entire police departments were disbanded, government officials resigned in disgrace, and key witnesses met unexplained deaths. The evidence suggests that Marc Dutroux was never working alone, and that the true architects of this conspiracy may have escaped justice entirely. Before diving in, hit subscribe to stay connected with our investigations. It was August 9th, 1996, in the quiet Belgian town of Grace, alone just outside Lille. The summer heat pressed down on the industrial landscape, where rows of modest houses lined streets that had seen better days. Detective Jean-Marc Dutroux stood outside a nondescript residence at number 128 Rue de Philippeville, unaware that the concrete bunker hidden beneath this property would expose a network of corruption reaching the highest levels of Belgian society. The investigation had begun 2 months earlier when 8-year-old Julie Lejeune and her friend Melissa Rousseau vanished while walking home from a swimming pool in nearby Grace alone. Their disappearance followed a disturbing pattern. Over the previous 2 years, 5 other young girls had vanished from the same region under similar circumstances, leaving behind no witnesses and precious few clues. Marc Dutroux, a 39-year-old unemployed electrician with a history of child abuse convictions, had been questioned multiple times during the investigation. Each interview revealed inconsistencies in his statements, yet he was repeatedly released. What investigators didn't know was that beneath his unremarkable exterior lay a man who claimed to be collecting children for a larger organization, one that reached far beyond the capabilities of a simple criminal. The breakthrough came when police finally obtained a warrant to search Wu's property. Hidden beneath a trapdoor in the basement, they discovered a concrete dungeon measuring just 6 feet by 16 feet. The walls bore scratches from small fingernails, and the air carried the unmistakable scent of human suffering. Inside this underground prison, they found 2 girls, Sabine Darden and Laetitia Delhez, both alive but bearing the psychological scars of months in captivity. The rescue should have marked the end of the case, but instead, it opened a door to something far more complex and disturbing. During his confession, Dutroux made claims that sent shockwaves through Belgian law enforcement. He insisted he was merely a low-level operative in a vast network that included prominent politicians, judges, and police officials. According to his statements, he had been tasked with acquiring children for parties attended by members of Belgium's elite. As investigators delved deeper into Dutroux's background, they uncovered a web of connections that defied explanation. Despite being unemployed, he owned 7 properties across Belgium, each purchased with cash transactions that left no paper trail. Bank records showed regular deposits into his accounts from sources that investigators could never identify. The properties themselves revealed modifications that suggested they had been specifically designed for holding captives. The investigation took a darker turn when police discovered that Dutroux had been under surveillance by multiple law enforcement agencies for years. Files revealed that he had been identified as a suspect in several child disappearances, yet each investigation had been mysteriously terminated or redirected. Phone records showed regular contact with individuals whose identities were classified at levels that prevented local investigators from accessing their files. Mitchell Nihoul, a Brussels businessman with connections to the city's nightlife scene, emerged as a central figure in the expanding investigation. Witnesses described him as the organizer of exclusive parties where children were allegedly present under disturbing circumstances. His address book contained the names of judges, police commissioners, and government officials, many of whom had previously been involved in decisions that had kept Dutreux free despite mounting evidence of his crimes. The case reached a critical juncture when Judge Jean-Marc Connerat, who had been leading the investigation, was suddenly removed from the case. Official reasons cited a conflict of interest, but investigators close to the matter reported that Connerat had been preparing to issue arrest warrants for several high-profile individuals. His replacement, Judge Jacques Langlois, immediately scaled back the investigation's scope and classified large portions of the evidence. Witnesses who had been cooperating with investigators began to meet untimely death. Mitchell Burlett, a key witness who claimed to have attended parties where children were present, died in a car accident just days before his scheduled testimony. The vehicle showed signs of mechanical tampering, yet the official investigation concluded it was a simple traffic fatality. Regina Louf, another witness who had provided detailed accounts of abuse networks, survived multiple attempts on her life but found her credibility systematically destroyed by media campaigns that appeared coordinated. The investigation revealed that several of Dutreux's properties had been searched years earlier, yet investigators had somehow missed obvious signs of their true purpose. Video footage from one search showed officers walking directly past a hidden door that led to a basement where children were allegedly being held. The officers involved claimed they had followed proper procedure, but audio analysis of the footage revealed what sounded like muffled cries from behind the walls they had failed to breach. Documents recovered from Nihul's office contained references to something called the network, described in coded language that suggested an international operation. Financial records showed payments to individuals across Europe, with particular concentrations in the Netherlands, France, and Luxembourg. The amounts were consistent with what investigators believed were payments for acquiring and transporting children. The case took on international dimensions when investigators discovered connections to similar operations in other countries. Police reports from the Netherlands described a network dismantled there years earlier, with several suspects who had fled to Belgium. French authorities had been tracking a similar organization, but had lost the trail at the Belgian border. The patterns suggested a sophisticated operation that moved children between countries to avoid detection. As the investigation progressed, key pieces of evidence began to disappear from police custody. Videotapes that allegedly showed prominent individuals in compromising situations vanished from secure storage facilities. Computer hard drives containing financial records were damaged beyond recovery in what officials described as a series of unfortunate technical failures. The chain of custody for critical evidence became so compromised that much of it was ruled inadmissible in court. The deeper investigators dug, the more they encountered obstacles that seemed deliberately placed in their path. Witnesses recanted their statements after receiving visits from unidentified individuals. Phone records that had been scheduled for analysis were accidentally destroyed in a fire at the telecommunications company. Government officials, who had initially promised full cooperation, suddenly cited national security concerns when pressed for specific information. The trial of Marc Dutroux, when it finally began, focused almost exclusively on his individual crimes rather than the broader network he claimed to represent. Evidence of his connections to other individuals was ruled inadmissible on technical grounds. Witnesses who had described a larger conspiracy were dismissed as unreliable, their testimonies undermined by questions about their mental state and motivations. Yet, even as the official investigation narrowed its focus, disturbing patterns continued to emerge. Several of the properties Dutreux had owned were purchased by individuals who could not be identified, their ownership hidden behind layers of shell companies registered in countries with strict banking secrecy laws. The locations themselves remained under surveillance by agencies that refused to identify themselves to local authorities. The final revelation came when investigators discovered that Dutreux had been in regular contact with individuals whose communications were protected by diplomatic immunity. Phone records showed calls to embassy numbers and private residences of foreign nationals who were never questioned about their connection to the case. The pattern suggested that the network extended far beyond Belgium's borders, reaching into the highest levels of European society. What do you think really happened in the basement of that house in Grace Hallone? Was Marc Dutroux simply a lone predator, or was he telling the truth about serving a much larger and more powerful organization? Subscribe to explore more cases where the official story leaves far too many questions unanswered.